Hi everyone, my name is Camila.
And I'm Gabe, and this week Camilla and I are reviewing My Policeman. Cam and Ian are going on the spot to take a look at Love, Simon.
Let's take a look at the trailer for My Policeman.
To all of us.
To all of us.
All
Cheers.
Of us.
Cheers.
Come with me, my love, to the sea.
I want you to be my wife.
Sea of love. I wanna tell you how much I love you.
This love is all-consuming. I pity people who don't know what it feels like to be this in love. Come with me, just you and I.
He's trying to destroy our marriage.
No hiding, no lies.
You know nothing about being married to Stop telling me what I'm supposed to think about it.
Come with me, my love, to the sea of love.
He was always in your life, in our lives.
I wanna tell you how much I love you.
Alright, so Camilla, My Policeman. This movie normally wouldn't feel so big had it not be starring Harry Styles. You know, we're all experiencing, I'm going to say some Harry Styles fatigue, personally. And it's because of the train wreck that was Don't Worry, Darling. And now we're getting this, and we're going to talk about it, but it's kind of a monotonous, rote mess. But what's not a monotonous, rote mess is Harry Styles' newest album, Harry's House. You are the Review Crew's resident Harry Styles expert, so I just need to know, in your opinion, what is the best song off that album?
It's hard asking me that because I'm a very big fan. I know every song by heart. Don't ask why.
Having been in your car multiple times, I can testify that that's true.
Having traveled to different cities for concerts, it's crazy. My favorite song, probably Cinema.
Okay, that's a great song. I'm going to go with Satellite. Anyone that's willing to sample Counting Crows' Accidentally in Love, I'm going to be a big fan. What I'm not a big fan of is Harry Styles acting in this movie. And I think probably the best way we can begin is just breaking down the performances of our three main actors, starting with the aforementioned Mr. Styles. He tries. I think he really tries here. I feel like this is a role he was passionate about, but it didn't come off that way. Starting with what was going on with the accent? Like, I know he was trying to do a Brighton accent, which I assume is like some sort of English dialect because England's crazy. But his accent shifts so much throughout this. Like, there's no consistency in the way he pronounces words, and it's just infuriating. Did you notice that too, or is that just me being psycho?
No, I'm so glad you said that because I was watching it and I thought I was going crazy. I watched it while I wasn't feeling good, so I was like, maybe it's just me. Apparently not. It's not just me.
You're not delusional.
I'm not delusional.
He's just bad at acting.
He needs some work for sure. I am a little biased because I am a really big fan of his, but definitely needs some work. But I did notice the accent change. I thought it was weird.
And so he comes across as he's going for stoic policeman, a man who like doesn't want to fall in love and like have an affair on his wife. He can't do that. Harry Styles can't do stoic. He's a very charming individual. Like, if you've ever seen, I know you've seen him, videos from his concerts, he's an extremely charming, charismatic guy. In this movie, he has all the charisma of drying cement. Like, he just can't make himself compelling on screen. And part of that is because he never dives into the motivations for his character. And that's a big issue throughout the film, particularly in the two love interests played by Emma Corrin and David Dawson. Because every time they're like asked like why they like him, why they're attracted to him, it boils down to, well, he's hot. That's not a compelling reason to cheat on your wife. There's no good reason to, but at least like try and convince me.
Yeah.
It comes off as horrible, tacky, and a little bit shallow, I'm gonna be honest with you. Now, speaking of shallow, this is where we get to David Dawson and Emma Corrin. And I feel like we should start with Emma Corrin because she's the one who I was most excited for in this. She's huge from The Queen. She did an excellent job playing Princess Diana. Everyone remembers that scene from the last season finale where Prince Charles confesses that he's in love with Camilla and he's not in love with Princess Diana, and it's a wonderful moment. And Emma Corrin is a competent actress. So why does she feel so one note in this? Did you notice that at all?
I did. I was honestly kind of disappointed because she was nominated for an Emmy for her work in The Crown. So I was really surprised when I didn't see any passion. I didn't see any passion. It was just like Harry. Like it's almost as if she didn't get into her character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the issue with her is that her character has the most reason to be passionate, to be vengeful, to be maniacal, and we see some notes of that in the story, but not in her performance. The writing for this movie leaves a lot to be desired, but there are parts of it where it's very tragic romance, soap opera-y, which is exactly what we're watching this for, let's be honest. But she takes the fun from that away because she is a vacuum on screen. Like her performance is really just, she's not delivering lines, she's reading from a script.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to watch because she's so talented. Now the surprising part for this for me was David Dawson, who plays Patrick, who comes across as this suave, confident man. First off, star of the entire movie. This is a star-making performance for him, at least in my opinion. As I was watching it, I couldn't help but think, oh, he could be the next James Bond. Like that's how he came across on screen. Were you expecting him to be as good as he was?
No, actually, I wasn't. It was the first time I had heard of him. I had never seen him in anything else, so I honestly didn't know what to expect. I was kind of going into it blindly. So when he gave the performance that he did, I was pretty like convinced, and I was pretty shocked. Like he did a really good job.
Yeah, they did a really, really good job of not making him stereotypical because he's a museum curator, so he could have easily become Harry Styles in the best song ever music video, like this like sniveling hi guys type person, and they didn't do that, which I thought was really cool. It was a nice departure from everything we've seen before, and it like stops this from becoming nerd falls in love with like handsome jock type thing, which none of us want to watch. Like we've all seen that way too many times. But the issue with this is that even David Dawson's performance is not enough to elevate it from the dregs of Emma Corrin and Harry Styles. And what else is, also pretty disappointing is just the way this movie was directed. It's directed by a man whose only real work has been theater work. Like he's staged a lot of performances. When I heard that, it made complete sense because this would work so much better as a stage production. But on a film, it doesn't come across as artful. It just comes across as like informational, if that makes sense. Like the way he's directed it, it's all tell and don't show. We get exposition dump after exposition dump, and it's just infuriating. What are your thoughts on how this was directed?
I think you're right. I think if this was like a theater production on Broadway, it would have gotten better ratings for sure. I think I don't think the trope was long enough for it to be a movie. That's why the movie felt so short. So I think if it was a theater production, I think it would have been able to be stretched out more. Yeah.
I completely agree with you. There's so many other things they could have done with this. This could have been like a visual concept album for a Harry Styles thing, or it could have been like a 2-episode like PBS miniseries. But as an Amazon Prime big movie debut that we were supposed to be excited about, it just kind of fell really flat. And the most infuriating part about this is that it was primed to succeed. It had 2 weeks before Black Panther 2 came out.
Yeah.
So like it could have like taken over the acclaim. Award season is like kicking way into gear, and this could have really like knobbed some nominations, and it really just didn't, and it was really disappointing. I guess the silver lining is that it came to Amazon Prime, so we didn't have to pay extra to watch it. which is like nice because I didn't spend my own money on it. That's like the really only silver lining I could find with it.
Yeah, I know it was released in only select theaters earlier in October. I don't remember exactly what date, but it was only in like 4 states.
Well, do you know what the advantage to watching on Amazon Prime Video is?
What?
There's no commercials. But we do have commercials, so let's go take a look. And we're back. Camilla, we're talking about My Policeman, and I feel like we're both kind of disappointed. I'm trying to think of positives here. Like I'm really trying to come up with some, and I'm really struggling. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like I'm trying to think of things that I liked in this movie because there's just so many bizarre artistic choices. Starting with the fact that it genuinely feels like none of this cast has chemistry together. Like, I feel like, okay, if I was directing a movie, I would, like, get my cast together and I'd, like, make them, like, spend time together, become friends, like, develop relationships with each other. Because in this, it kind of feels like these are 3 actors who never met. They were given a script and they're like, hey, fall in love with each other. And it just, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
There's no chemistry between them. Like, David Dawson does his best, but, like, charisma doesn't equal chemistry. You know what I'm saying? So did you feel any chemistry between them?
I expect, okay, so like in the scene where Tom and Patrick are like laying down together on the couch, obviously they're like it's like skin to skin contact. You would expect for there to be some sort of connection, but I didn't feel it. Like they're 2 lovers that are laying together. You would expect to feel the love coming from the screen. There was nothing. It felt,
There was no passion in this entire movie.
yeah.
Like, there was no anger. Like, okay, there was displays of anger. This movie, I just thought of the best way to describe it, it feels hollow. I know what you're going for, but I don't feel any of that. And so I feel like it's a perfect comparison to Brokeback Mountain, which is a movie that you feel like gut-wrenching loss. You feel fury at like how people are treating these 2 characters. And like you're just so sad because they can't be together. And so like this movie doesn't do anything similar to it. And it's so frustrating. Like it's awesome that there's a movie about gay romance and how so many people were prosecuted for being gay in the 50s, and that's an important thing to talk about. But do it in a way that's like worthy of such an important conversation. You know what I'm saying? Like Brokeback Mountain did that. They did it really, really well. This just kind of falls flat, and I can't help but be disappointed. And it's only made worse by the strange technological choices and like artist choices in here. Starting with, Camille, why was this movie so gray?
It honestly felt like I was watching Twilight, because Twilight has that weird blue filter over it, and so without it, Twilight looks just like really weird, with just like natural coloring. But this had like a weird gray tint over it, and it like enhanced colors that it shouldn't have enhanced. It honestly looks so bad.
It was genuinely like someone opened Adobe Premiere Pro, went to the Lumetri color scopes, and went gray.
Yeah.
Like it's like it feels like I'm watching like the openings to like WandaVision. Like I don't know what I'm supposed to go for here. Like and if that was a choice to make me feel sad, I wasn't sad. I just kept thinking the brightness was wrong on my laptop, to be honest with you. And so that was so weird. Also, what was with the editing in this? Like there were so many times it would fade from a young Harry Styles to an old Harry Styles, which we're going to talk about because that was weird, over and over again. The first time I was like, oh, that's cool. A bit hammy, but cool. By the 17th time, I was like, if you do this again, I'm throwing my laptop out the window.
For me, it was so hard to, I have a short attention span. We all know that. So for there to be such transitions like this, I kept getting lost. Like I didn't know what was going on. Like I would look away from the screen when they're young, and then I would like, I don't know, look at a notification on my phone, and then all of a sudden they're an old couple, and I was like, what did I just miss in like the 2 seconds that I looked away?
It was just heavy-handed. It was obtuse. The only thing that could have been more heavy-handed is they put a title card saying "in the future." Like that's literally the only thing that could have been worse. And so it wasn't artistic. It was just frustrating and made no sense. Speaking of frustrating, making no sense, I think the last thing we need to talk about here is why was this movie written to have 2 timelines? Like it's just they don't explain it to you. We open with just like an old couple, and we don't realize that it's Harry Styles and Emma Corrin. And like it's just made frustrating.
Yeah, when I was watching it and it opened with an old couple, I was like, who are these people? Why is there a third old person moving in? Like what's going on? They didn't like introduce it. And I think the first transition to the younger couple wasn't until a couple minutes in. So it was only then until I made the connection, but even then I was still speculating like, is that them? Is that not them? Like what's going on here? Yeah.
Yeah. I wish I could say that this is like even a good date night movie, because like there's certain movies that like they're not critically great, but you can like throw them on while you're like you're snuggling up with somebody. It's winter, like we all know what we're looking for. This isn't one of them. This is a movie that like tries to be provocative. It tries to like dig into human psyche and pathos, and all it really ends up doing is digging its heels into the ground, having no momentum, and just like ceasing to create anything good. And frankly, like you're just left wanting more. I guess my last question for you is, what does Harry Styles need to do to kind of shake off this reputation of being just not a good actor? Don't worry, darling. He like played too bizarrely, and there was the whole Spitgate. That was a lot. This he played with, as I said, all the charisma of drying cement. His next best thing, or next big thing, MCU, he's going to be playing Eros, which is a, to put it lightly, controversial Marvel character, and there's going to have to be some serious retconning going on by Kevin Feige in the group. Do we think the MCU is the right choice? Do we think he needs to take a break? What do you think needs to happen here?
I think it's 2 things. It's only his 3rd movie. He's always, like, he was in One Direction for like, a little over a decade, I think. I don't remember. So all he knows is just, like, performing live music and just recording music. So I think he needs more practice acting. But also the second thing, I think there's a lot of pressure on him because he's such, like, a big pop star and everything. There's a lot of pressure on him to do just as good acting as he does like performing at a concert. So I think it's a lot of pressure for him is what I think it is. He lets it get to his head and it affects his acting.
That's completely fair. So are you saying that like Harry needs to go to Broadway and like dip his toes into that water?
Possibly, yeah.
I could see it. I think that'd be really cool. But My Policeman, we got to give it a score. I want to know what yours is first before I even say mine, because I don't want to hurt your Harry Styles fan heart. So what are you going to give My Policeman from 1 to 10?
I'm going to give it a 5. Yeah. Because I actually really like the trope. I'm a sucker for those kinds of tropes. I read them in books all the time. So I'll give it a 5 for the trope. Yeah.
I like a good tragic romance as much as the next person. But if I want one, I'm going to go read Othello or anything else. I'm not going to put this movie on ever again. And I hate to do this to you, but I'm giving this movie a 1.
Okay.
And it's getting a 1 because David Dawson did his absolute best.
Yeah.
I can't justify giving this anything else because, frankly, it was just thoroughly disinteresting, and I felt like it was a waste of my time. And I expect better from Harry Styles. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
And with that, let's kick it over to another commercial break.
My name is Jenna Cooper, and I'm the relationship psychologist.
My name is Paige Phillips. I am the astrologer, and this
is Psych vs. Stars.
Well, that's enough late night talking from Gabe and I. Let's kick it on over to our on-the-spot correspondents, Cam and Ian, who are reviewing Love, Simon. Let's check it out.
Hi, I'm Ian.
And I'm Cameron.
Today we're reviewing Love, Simon.
Let's check out the trailer.
Hey guys, how was the party? It was really fun.
Aces. He's wearing a woman's sweater and he's drunk.
Well, he didn't drive drunk and he's home before curfew, so.
That's what I thought we got.
Right?
Yeah, we're good parents.
Yeah, we're good.
Right?
Fake young woman. Good morning, Creekwood Hook.
My name's Simon. For the most part, my life is totally normal. I have a family that I actually like, and there's my friends. We do everything friends do. We drink way too much iced coffee while gorging on carbs. So, I'm just like you, except I have one huge-ass secret.
Hey! I like your boots! I said I like your boots! Goodbye!
Nobody knows I'm gay.
Have you seen the new post? About the closeted gay kid at school.
What?
Who do you think it is?
Can I call you back? Dear Blue, I'm just like you. This was a mistake.
It's nice to know there's another guy at school with the same secret. When did you first realize?
It was a bunch of little things, like my first girlfriend.
I think I'm falling in love with you.
Wow, thank you. Be right back. Wasn't my proudest moment.
Sometimes I think I'm destined to care so much about one person it nearly kills me.
Me too. I'm done living in a world where I don't get to be who I am. I deserve a great love story. And I want someone to share it with.
Have you ever been in love?
I think so.
These last few years, it's almost like I can feel you holding your breath.
I'm supposed to be the one that decides when and where and who knows. That's supposed to be my thing.
Disclaimer. This is about to get romantic as F. You're not into Abby, are you? She's cute, but she's just not really my type. Not because she's black. I love black women. Not like, I have a thing for black women. I just love all women.
So, Ian, what did you think of the movie?
I thought this movie was pretty well done. I remember seeing a lot of advertising for it as it was first coming out in, 2016, 2018, somewhere around there. And I remember seeing it's like the first LGBTQ, big produced movie. And I was like, oh, that looks cute. But I never got around to seeing it until just last night. And I was actually really pleasantly surprised with it.
Yeah, I agree. Just like you, I didn't watch it until last night. And I thought it was just a pretty good movie all around. I wouldn't really say it's the most memorable movie. I probably won't really remember it within the next week or two. But I thought it was a good movie. It's a fun way to spend hour and 50 minutes.
Yeah, I think it was and I think it's definitely not like a I'm gonna sit at home and alone in my dorm room and watch this movie.
It's not the most rewatchable movie ever.
It's not super rewatchable, but it's definitely not something you watch alone. It's definitely like a cute date night movie. Yeah. And I think a cute movie is exactly how I would describe this movie.
Yeah, I completely agree. So this movie was a rom-com. Do you think it centered more towards romance or comedy?
Definitely towards romance, I would say. I would also say it wasn't super romancy even for a rom-com. It was more to me, the center of the conflict wasn't a relationship. It was definitely a big part of it, but it was more about Simon staying closeted to me, and that's what it felt like.
Yeah. So for people who haven't seen this movie before, give us a quick plot synopsis of just what the movie's about.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have Simon. He's an ordinary guy, and he has a great life, great family, great friends, but he is a closeted gay man, and he's not ashamed of it or anything, and he's not really sure himself why he wants to stay closeted, but he sees this anonymous post on their school blog confession forum, which is a stupid plot device, by the way, and it's about this other closeted gay guy, and he leaves his email in there, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna email this guy because I feel the same way that he does in this thing. So they're emailing back and forth, and he falls in love with him, and as he's going throughout the movie, he's trying to figure out who this person is. So we see certain scenes, like there's this big Halloween party scene, and he thinks it's this one guy, and he's like I'm gonna confess my love for him, because he's like convinced it's this guy, but he walks in on them making out, and then he goes to this other guy. I remember the Waffle House guy, and then there was another one too, but I kind of forget. And then towards the end, you realize that towards the end he's actually outed by someone who had these emails between him and his like partner, and he is eventually he has to come to terms with it himself, and he decides to do like a formal coming out. He comes out to his family, comes out on the blog post, and even though he lost like his friends because of the way he was treating them, they all come back in the end, and he ends up with the guy. So very cute movie, very very nice watch, but yeah, I would completely agree. It's not extremely memorable, and it's pretty by the books, honestly.
So what do you think of that ending?
Yeah, I think the ending was honestly very well done and actually really cute. It's a lot of suspense. It's kind of weird because him and his friends, they all go to the meeting spot where he's supposed to meet the guy, because he was like, you know where to meet me, on the big confession blog post, and he's waiting there. The whole school's there too, which is like really strange, and I don't think it would ever happen. And that kind of like, I don't know, this was a pretty realistic movie the whole way through, besides emailing in that year. But like, but that part kind of weirded me out, and how like everybody sat there and like watched them have their first kiss, like the whole school. It was just kind of like, I don't know.
It was kind of weird. Like, I know like it's like the big like coming out moment.
Yeah.
But it's just like pretty unrealistic for a pretty grounded movie.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's actually some really good like stuff towards the beginning, and also at the end when he's like forcibly outed by his friend. There's some.
That was tough to watch.
Yeah, those like homophobic attacks from the other students. It's kind of like, it's just like, I don't know, it kind of just adds to the realism of the whole movie, and I just think that weird thing towards the end kind of just like, yeah.
I thought the plot was pretty grounded, of course, until the end. But so, what do you think of the cinematography? I don't think they really focused too much on cinematography. It seems that they were just like watching events unfold.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, it was kind of just like if you were there, like if you were just a third person who wasn't interacting with anybody. That's probably the best way I would describe it. Just like you're watching the events unfold. The only shot I can think of that like was like something was when him and his best friend are walking back from the Halloween party drunk. It's on this nice angle, and there's this tree. I don't know. It just like, it was a bit varied, so it kind of stuck out to me.
Yeah, I agree. Would you have wanted it to be a better cinematographic movie? Well, I don't really know how to say it. Cinematographic.
I mean, I always appreciate good cinematography, so probably yes, but I don't know. It services this movie fine, not having it.
Yeah, well, something that I always really appreciate is soundtrack on a movie. Yeah. But I didn't think this movie had a very memorable soundtrack, and I always think that's like a big part of the movie. And while it's a rom-com, so a soundtrack doesn't really matter too much for a rom-com. What do you think?
Yeah, I think soundtrack was pretty much average, and it didn't really stick out to me either. But soundtrack in mind, what would you rate this movie out of 10?
Soundtrack in mind, if it was soundtrack, I'd give it like a 2 out of 10. I'd give the movie probably like a 7.5 to 8 out of 10. It's a fun movie. Like, some parts aren't very fun, but it's a good movie to watch. I'd say it's a little bit forgettable at times, but I thought it's an all-around good movie. Again, the ending's a little bit unrealistic, but yeah.
I would definitely give this movie a 6 out of 10. I think it's very cute for what it is, but it's not very memorable. And movies are very rewatchable, and this one is not something I plan to come back to. But that being said, we'll send it right back to the studio.
Consider this a sign of the times that another commercial break is on the way. And now let's go check out a special gaming review from Brett.
Flash warning for photosensitive viewers. It's good to be back. I've got history with this game. It and we've been through a lot. When Persona 5 was first released in North America, it was in 2017. That was after a 2013 announcement in which the game was slated for a 2014 release. That got pushed to 2015, which got pushed to 2016 in Japan. To set the scene, all of my friends went on our high school's Disney trip in March of 2017. My family wasn't made of money, so I couldn't go. In its place, after I traded in some games to a kind employee who was willing to give me the best deals, I was hyped to enjoy this game while my friends had left me for dead. And then there was the cherry on top. The game's Western localization was slated for Valentine's Day 2017. Ample time for me to be knee-deep into the story and still have some time to go while everyone else was gone. Then it got pushed back to April. I was exhausted. At the very least, a month later, when it finally came out, I got my hands on the base version of Persona 5. For the time being, that was my Disney. Now, Persona 5 is a long game on its own, and Royal is way more. So, when you sit down to play this game, you're choosing to make an investment of your time. The base version of Persona 5 takes approximately 72 hours to complete, and that's if you're rushing. Combined with a high schooler's schedule, I wasn't even done with this game by the time I had graduated. Flash forward to 2022, the definitive version of the game, Royal, with about 30 extra hours, has already been out on PS4 for a minute. But now it's on everything. With all of that preamble, how does Persona 5 even hold up? It's got its flaws, but overall, when you're looking for a Japanese role-playing game, this one really can't be beat. For the technical details, in short, there was some troubleshooting to go through playing on PC, and I'd rather just run it on a console on most days, but running on a good PC, it looks more fluid and runs more smoothly than ever before. There's just sort of a magic to it on the screen of a good PC that there isn't on my PS4. Persona 5 Royal may flub on the details when it comes to sharpening the edges of its story, but for all intents and purposes, it never stops being a thrill ride from start to finish. One half of this game is classic JRPG, turn-based battles, along with a demon-catching system. The series this game is from predates Pokemon, so it was doing Pokemon before Pokemon did Pokemon. One of my favorite aspects about the way the system flows is that amidst all the other neat little design choices, you nearly always have the choice of choosing when to battle or not. None of the random encounter stuff that made me put this entire genre of game down for the better part of a decade. When it comes to the other half of Persona 5, you've got a social simulator baked into your visual novel story. As you live the daily life of a high schooler, you get to know more people that relate to the core, or at least themes of your story in some way. If you choose to get to know a person better, that will lead to upgrading your confidant rank, which ultimately leads to perks in the battle system. That's the short of it, but this game is meaty, and if I wanted to go over everything in detail, we could truly be here for hours. But moving on, you play as a high schooler who was expelled from his last school for stopping a rich dude from committing assault. You transfer into Shujin Academy, where you're considered an outcast for your track record. Along the way, you find other people who are similarly outcast in other ways and sympathize with your situation. Through the power of friendship and rebellion, you band together as a group of rebels known as Phantom Thieves, who, with the power of the persona, a Jungian psychology-inspired manifestation of the soul, you infiltrate people's metaphorical hearts and correct their wicked desires. Along the way, you uncover a conspiracy that goes all the way to the top. In Royal, which is again the definitive version of the game with improved gameplay mechanics, all-around fixes, and an additional 30 hours worth of content, you're thrust into a scenario that forces you to question your motives and ultimately say, actually, the new villain was right. Side note for anyone playing or about to play, if you're playing this game and you're trying to get the true ending, you should spend your time completing the confidant routes for Akechi, Yoshizawa, and Maruki. If you don't at least max out Akechi and Maruki, and you don't have any save data from before when this part takes place, you will be locked out of this portion of the game. For an approximately 100-hour game, if you're going fast, this could just be a tiny bit frustrating. I've blabbered on about the bulk of this game. There's truly so much to cover within a short amount of time, and I think that for most prices, and especially on sale, and especially on Xbox Game Pass, that you'll get your money's worth with Persona 5 Royal. That being said, I do have gripes. First and foremost, the DLC. I have always hated paid downloadable content in video games, and I will continue to hate it here. Aside from just making a quick buck out of its customers, there's absolutely no reason that anything Atlus has packaged as DLC should exist. There's cool new battles, and there's some costume packs that let you play different songs during battles, and then DLC personas that make the game easier than it already is. Furthermore, this story is sprawling, but sometimes it misses the mark. I think that by the time you uncover the main villain of the base game, you'll be disappointed. I know I was, because it felt like a cop-out. Spoiler alert, skip like 10 seconds, it's the guy who was going to commit assault. He's a pseudo-Donald Trump. And then you fight God. The main villain of the new segment in Royal is an amazing fix that should have been there in the first place. Knowing that they exist, and knowing that they've probably been in the minds of the creators of this game for a while, make me wonder why they weren't there in the first cut. And that makes me wonder if the answer is money. It is. Atlus has a habit of dropping the ball when it comes to either making quality content that'll make its consumers happy, or just making stuff that its consumers will buy. I got a collector's copy of Shin Megami Tensei 5, the parent series of Persona, and the game was a major disappointment to me. I got a cool bag and collector's items though. The 25th anniversary of Persona has happened, and for the most part, that's been a disappointment too. I recognize that this game coming to all systems was a part of the delivery end of that anniversary, but that's basically all we've gotten out of it so far besides cool promo art and exorbitantly priced merch. I could go on ranting about how I think that consumerism has reared its ugly head and is eroding the core of what made Atlus games good, but you get the gist, and this game deserves more than to get criticized for a company and economy-wide problem. So it's time to talk about the art direction and the music. The art is beautiful in this game. In-game models have a cel-shaded edge to them, while all of the 2D art and menus ooze style and show that there's a jumping, moving world in here. I could describe it, but I could also just show you the way that the art dances across the screen. There's page rips made to imitate a comic book style, and a loving shout-out goes to the all-out attack screens that end battles if you play your cards right. These things blew my mind when I was in high school, and they continue to spark joy today. They're just stunning to look at. Speaking of stunning, we have that soundtrack by Shoji Meguro that just knocks it out of the park! Play the track. At its core, the music of this game just bursts and jives, inspired by acid jazz. Everything about this soundtrack says, "Ooh, I'm one of the cool guys. I know more than you. I'm a phantom thief. I'm awesome." I'm struggling to put it entirely into words just how amazing the music in this game is, but I will tell you that I started listening to the soundtrack so often that I realized it was a problem, and told myself that I couldn't listen to any of the music until next year unless I was watching the game, playing the game, or editing this video. That's how good it is. There's the funky battle themes, Last Surprise, the normal theme, and then Take Over, the new theme that plays when you trigger an ambush to start a battle. One of the things that makes all of the music in here so darn great is the competent use of leitmotifs. Meguro makes sure that you know what the vibe of the Phantom Thieves is, so once you hear that theme or variations of it show up in other spots, you're hyped, your blood's pumping, and you're ready to ruin some corrupt adult's career. Flaws and all, Persona 5 is like a group project where everyone involved actually carried their weight, chipped in, and did the best that they could. It's a competently put together piece of art. It's honestly a miracle that, considering just how many moving parts were involved in this entire project, and the delays, a vision this strong still came through. That's a feat in and of itself. I understand that for some, anime as an entire style and genre may just be off-putting, and it may come as a hard sell. On the other hand, if you like video games, you should play Persona 5 Royal. End of discussion.
Now let's go Chico out our credits.